I want to knock out the rest of these videos here, video 3, video 4, video 5. What I would like to do is shoot video 3 first and then circle back, do the pre-roll videos for video 2 because we didn't do those yet, and then do those in video 3. But I want to start with a big chunk of content first to get me in state. All right? Sourcing and private labeling. So this is video 3. So video 2 was the best products to sell. Now we're going to get more granular on sourcing and private labeling specifically. Let's see, be very clear, listen not to the content. Forget the content. If you're an Amazon seller, this is 1 + 1 = 2, right? And if you're not an Amazon seller, you don't have to be. Just listen to the words I'm using. Listen to some of the things that I do, some of the phrases, and try to catch all of the persuasional elements I'm going to put into here. Because if you can pull any 1 or 2 of these out and lock it in and observe it and see what's happening, I think it's going to show up more in your marketing, okay? So let's try to do that here with this one. Sourcing and private labeling. I'm going to take a drink, and we're going to count it down, and we're going to go. So I want you to imagine you're at a cocktail party. And somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, what do you do? And you say, I got this little business that I have on Amazon. I sell these widgets. What are these widgets? They could be anything. They could be sunscreen. They could be the snorkel, right? A Bluetooth speaker. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody says to you, and they say, hey, I heard you came into some money recently. You're doing something different. What do you do? You say, oh, yeah, I sell this sunscreen on Amazon. They say, what do you mean? Yeah, I got my own little sunscreen brand. Yeah, I got my own little Bluetooth speaker brand. What I would love for you to do right now as you listen to and watch this video is I want you to say out loud, I have my own little blank brand. I don't even care what it is. Look around the room. Whatever catches your eye first. So if you have a water bottle, say I have my own little water bottle brand, and I'm selling products on Amazon, and we're doing good. And maybe we're doing better than good, but you don't have to tell everybody else. And that's the idea of selling on Amazon. A lot of people think, and I certainly thought this when I started on Amazon, that private labeling a product and sourcing a product and starting your own company, your own brand of product is incredibly complicated, right? I mean, people get these visions of inventors and laboratories formulating and patenting and molding and all this crazy stuff. And certainly, if we're going to create our own brand, we got to have this magical breakthrough of a one-of-a-kind product. And God, it sounds great, doesn't it? But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're in the know, that's not how it works. So I'll never forget the first time Will and I decided to start selling in this business. So Wilson Matos is my business partner. We got excited. It was 2012. We said, you know what? We're going to start doing this Amazon thing, I think. But what's involved? Oh, you got to source a product. So I come back to him and go, I did the research. Here's what I think it is. I think it costs about $70, maybe $200 to get started with your own private label product. And I'll never forget this. He says to me, he goes, Jason, I think you misheard. I think you screwed it up. Maybe you forgot a zero, or maybe you just didn't ask the right question, which is very common, by the way. I'm very good at doing that. So I said, I got self-doubt. I'm like, yeah, you got to be right. Now that I say it out loud, it doesn't seem to make sense. But all the research pointed me out. But I must have screwed something up. So it's kind of the thing like measure twice, cut once. I went back and I double-checked. I triple-checked. I said, are you serious? I can start my own skincare line of products, because that's what we did. We started a skincare line. And I can get started in this business. I could order as little as 10 units, and you'll put my product, private labeling on it. You'll send it to Amazon for me, and it's going to cost me $10 a unit, and I'm going to sell it for $30 to an Amazon customer, and I'm going to keep all the profit in between. Essentially, the answer was yes. Now, here's the real kicker. How long will it take? Here's the beautiful thing about this, is in the business world, which you don't have to know too much about business, but basically at the end of the day, there's people who create things, they're called manufacturers, and then there are people that sell things, and those are called retailers. So 99% of the stuff you buy, unless you're buying from a manufacturer or distributor somewhere, you're buying at retail. You go to the store, that's retail. You go online, that's retail. But how does that person get the product that they sell to you? They go to manufacturers. Because there's this whole area of business online where people say, you know what, those customers at the end of the day, we don't want to deal with 1,000 customers. We want to deal with one person who will buy 1,000 products, and then they can sell it to those thousands of customers. And the reason why they have to focus on that, these manufacturers do, is because think of the effort involved with building your own factory, with creating your own factors of production, with assembly line and managing it and getting the raw precious materials that you dig from the earth, and then you create any number of products. So by the time they're done, they have no interest in doing anything other than selling you a product that you can buy in bulk, putting your logo on it, and then allowing you to figure out how to sell to the customers. Now here's what's really great about this. Everybody seems to be caught in the horse and carriage days, not realizing that the car has been invented yet. Because back in the day, you went to a manufacturer and then you had to figure out a way to put your product on the shelf spaces. You had to go out there and find your way to put your product in the hands of your customers, and you had to do it onesie-twosies. Think about it as going to all the garage sales in the world and trying to get your product there, right? Good luck with that. And then Amazon came on, and everybody kind of ignored it, and they got a little bit bigger, but they say, yeah, it's only 1% of the internet. That's not that big, right? And then they got 2%, 5%, 10%, and now everybody's looking at it saying this is the death of retail because more stores are going bankrupt in 2018 in the retail space offline than at any point in history. So the beautiful thing is we can still go to those manufacturers. Those manufacturers allow us to sell any product worth selling. We can private label. We can put it on Amazon. So we solved the first part of the problem, right? We can get whatever product you want. And there are some sites that you can look at. So on the webinar that we're doing here very shortly that you can sign up for and attend, I'm going to share with you 3 different ways that you can source products. But essentially, you can pay a small fee to have somebody else do it for you. You can use a certain specific website, or you can even go through Google using certain specific terms. That's not important right now. What's important is this. There are factories all over the world who you can send emails to and fill out forms saying, I want 10 units of this, I want 50 units of this, I want my own label, want my own product so I can have my own listing on Amazon. And then the second thing is, once you do that, we don't have to find the yard sales. We don't have to find the garage sales. Because every single product page on Amazon is essentially a store. And this is a store that allows you to be exposed to hundreds of millions of customers. So over 50% of the homes in the United States have a Prime membership. So you're saying, Jason, if I sell my product, somebody with a Prime membership doesn't have to pay shipping for it? Yes. That's what I'm saying. You say, well, hold on a second. They get it in 2 days or less? Yes. See, one of the reasons why Amazon is such an effective place to sell your product is because where else are you getting 2-day free shipping? I mean, could you sell that on your own? Sure. Are you going to do that? No, why would you? Because you allow manufacturers to do what they do best, which is what? Create your products. And then you allow Amazon to do what it does best, which is what? Fulfill your products. They got the whole last mile leverage to every house. 45% of Americans are within less than 20 minutes of an Amazon warehouse. Fulfillment, strategically done. So what does Amazon need? And what do manufacturers need? They need people who want products. They need people who want products. The manufacturer needs the person like you who says, I want to sell this product. And then the customer at Amazon says, I want to buy this product. And you're essentially the middleman. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Google, who's such a big, gigantic company, is a middle person. People search for it, advertisers advertise on it, and Google makes a ridiculous amount of money. Facebook is a middle person. People go on Facebook to stalk their ex-boyfriend and to post cute cat pictures, and advertisers advertise to them. And Facebook makes all the money. I'm telling you, the middleman position to be in is one of the most effective in business because manufacturers create products. You then put them on Amazon and customers buy them. This is why this is such a simple business model. And if you watch the video on product selection, then you know what types of products we're looking for. If you happen to miss that video, then what you need to do is register for the webinar, and we're going to go back through that with some specific examples here. The last thing I'd like to talk about this is the private labeling aspect. So you say, Jason, I'm with you on the following concepts. Yes, I think I can find products. And let me tell you, you can find them, you can get them up and going, and you can get them live quicker than you'd believe. And you say, Jason, I understand that the real value here is Amazon just wants to sell A to Z. That's why the logo starts with an A and the smile ends at a Z. Amazon just wants to sell every product under the sun. And you say, Jason, I realize, because I've seen trends like, fidget spinners and pop sockets and all kinds of weird new products popping up every single day. And I'm telling you, there's more stuff every single day that people want to buy than any amount of us could ever sell. So the opportunity's right. But this whole label thing, Jason, I'm not a designer. I'm not a graphic, whatever you call that thing. I don't know how to draw. I got an eye for radio, I guess. Not a face for radio, an eye for radio. I don't care what you're saying. You think that I sit down and actually design these things? You think that I know how to use these programs that can make these logos and images and all that kind of stuff? Do you think it matters if I did or if I didn't? Because the reality is there are sites all over it. We live in the gig economy. What does that mean? The gig economy means that after I get off of work, if I want to drive Uber for an hour and make $10, I can do that because somebody can dial me up and boom, I'm in business. And when I'm done, I'm done. That same gig economy works for graphic design. You want somebody in Bangladesh to design you a graphic and you want to pay a couple bucks for it? Done. Less important is the type of graphic, how you get it designed. What's most important, this is a little secret. I'm going to open it up just a little bit for you here. People are designing graphics that look nice. They're not designing graphics that make their products attractive to Amazon searchers. Because unlike a retail store who can pick a product up, smell it, feel it, drop it on their toe, on Amazon, you don't got that luxury. So there's certain type of design and graphic packaging secrets that can make the difference between people just starting out and going boom and making these big old companies who built it for shelf space go good night. So go ahead and do this for me. Two things. First, register for the webinar. Second, next time you do an Amazon search, I just want you to pay attention to what are the graphics that pop out? What are the images that grab your eye? And isn't it interesting how it has little to do with product superiority? And isn't it interesting how little it has to do with how long this person has been in business and how important it is to have the right label, the right logo and design mixed with the right product, sourced very quickly, very inexpensively, so you too can say when you're at the next party, so what are you doing these days? You still doing that weird make money online stuff? You say, no. You got it twisted. I sell my own line of blank on Amazon. And you know what the answer to that is? Ooh, I might want one of those. There you go. Register for the webinar, and we'll talk again shortly. All right, that's video 3. Woo! All right, so what do we do there? What's some of the things that left out? We got some mics ready? Hopefully got some people ready? Thank you. Killed the entire what?
It just crushed it. I didn't think they
Yeah.
could imagine what you said at the beginning.
Well, so we opened a loop up in the first few seconds, and then we closed it in the last few seconds,
But
right?
Where you closed it, you told them how easy it is, and then you talked about the Bangladesh guy,
Yeah.
and then you brought him right in with a commitment. Next time you search on Amazon, I want you to look at this, and then you brought the ownership home. I sell my own.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. So the high level of that is, remember the theory of learning happens when behavior changes? And so I always have this frame of assumption that next time you do blank, and then you notice I've used this over and over again, right? Nothing will help you sell better, even if you don't know what you're doing, than phrasing it as, when you do this again, here's how you can do this differently. Or the next time you do insert common behavior, point out new consideration. That's the framework, right? And so there's so many things that we can do that based on limitations that people currently have in their business. So Rory, give me an example, because you're in the book business, right? You help people create a best-selling book, writing it and promoting it, right? So what's one of the major things for somebody starting out who wants to create a book? Like, what's the problem that they have? What's a problem that they have?
They're looking for more credibility and authority.
More credibility and authority. And so typically, what is a common behavior that exposes them to the type of credibility and authority that you can provide to them? Like, what's something they do naturally and normally that we could slightly modify? Do they have their own website? Oftentimes.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, okay? So you can say, the next time you're on your own website, I want you to ask this question. What part of my website could I improve to give me more credibility? Or you could do it the other way. Next time you're on so-and-so's author page on Amazon, if it jumps out at you and you say, wow, this is different than other authors, I want you to make a note of what that difference is. See what I'm doing there? I am giving them to use an existing behavior, but I'm modifying that. And then the setup could very easily be, you very might well encounter one of the 7 elements that we put on every product page that makes somebody an obvious, credible person. And if you're missing something on your website that you could easily add in to give you more credibility, we've kind of got the hacks on how that works, right? There's 7 elements we put on there, et cetera, right?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that that a lot of people miss is that their Amazon profile ranks really high in Google.
I know. Yeah, mine's already ranking when we published that book.
Yeah.
It's already in the top 3 or 4 slots for my name, which is crazy, right?
Exactly. So that's a direct window to credibility for you.
So in this particular case, here's what I would say. The next time you're feeling an existential crisis and you go to Google yourself, right? Because if you can introduce a little pain while you're doing this, even better, right? I want you to notice if your Amazon listing as your author page shows up or not. And I'll give you a hint. If you don't have one, I guarantee you it won't show up. But I also want you to Google and look at some people that you know who you're impressed by, who are authors, and see how often these Google results show Amazon author pages. And now they're like, damn, I want that. Not only do I want it, I want to have the best version. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right, right? And so that part of your offer could be that you open up the door to do that. Because like some of the things that I should mention here with sourcing and product labeling is we have a part of our bonus in our offer where we do the sourcing for somebody. So for the first 8 weeks, they allow us to, we procure for them at free as a bonus. So we do 80% of the heavy lifting to source the product. And so our biggest positioning at the end of the day is, you know a good product from a bad product, we'll go fetch the product for you. So we start with the idea of there's 3 ways to source a product. You can do a Google search, you can do an Alibaba search, or you can use a procurement firm. And then we say, we recommend the procurement firm, but you got to pay somebody money instead of doing it on your own. And then the big reveal is, we have a procurement firm, and we're going to allow you to do it for free for 8 weeks. And they're like, oh, I want that, right? So if it's a really big thing that you say, the next time X happens, do Y or look at Y, and it just so happens that's what you give them for free later on, and they think they have to pay for it, that's where real massive selling potential pops up. But yeah, so the idea then becomes the next time you do whatever the common behavior is, I want you to consider this. So if you're wondering if you're overeducating somebody, the challenge is this, and this is important to understand, so you should definitely make note of this. So often presenters in any capacity, whether they're selling or on webinars or in person or at shows, whatever, they talk at their audience or to their audience. They don't talk with their audience. They don't have a conversation with their audience. And so Bill and I, we were on a call like a month back, was it, Bill, or 3 weeks back? So I looked at Bill's webinar and we went through it, and Bill was using a lot of statistics, and they were very powerful, very influential statistics. So do you remember one of those statistics, Bill? The average close rate in B2B sales is 12%. So you say, Jason, how do you be conversational in a webinar where you're in your own room and you can't see the other people and you can't talk to each one of them individually? So the example that I gave to Bill, and this is especially true with statistics, is I say, listen, if you had to guess what the average B2B close rate is, what percentage would you guess? Would you think it's 2%? Would you think it's 50%? Would you think it's 30%? Well, would you believe that it's just an abysmal 12%? Now, why do you think that is? That unfortunately, for every 10 leads that are generated, every 10 opportunities there is for somebody to make some money, 9 of them are taken out back and murdered, and only 1 of them flows through. Is this acceptable to you, or would you like to do better than 12%? Now, those of you who are doing better than 12%, are you okay with it? Or would you like to upgrade your closing percentages so you can help more people, serve more people, and make more money doing it? Okay? See how I had a conversation there. Language patterns. I asked a question. It was rhetorical in nature. If you had to guess what the average close rate is for a B2B sell, what would you guess? That's a brilliant question, because they're going to answer that regardless if I can hear them or not, even though I know the answer. And I can even pepper them. Is it 2%? Is it 50%? Is it 30%? Would you believe? I love those phrases. Can you imagine? Would you believe an abysmal 12%? It's called the framing effect. So if you ever want to get really geeked out on cognitive biases, look up the framing effect. Framing effect works like this. If you say there's a 90% chance that this process will succeed, people are like, yeah. If you say there's a 10% chance that this process will fail, people are like, no. Right? No, how do they quote the unemployment rate, right? 9%, whatever it is. Nobody says the employment rate is 91%. It's never focused on who has a job. It's always focused on who doesn't have a job. And we wonder why we get so pissed off when we bring up unemployment. It's the framing effect. Wouldn't it be better if a smart politician was to say, we have a 92% employment rate. Can you believe that? 9 out of 10 people have a job. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? When you say, listen, we got a 10% unemployment rate, you're like, oh, I knew it. We should have elected a Democrat, right? Framing effect. And so what we're typically doing there with our conversation is we're asking questions, but it allows us to frame things. When I say 9 out of 10 times, we're taking a lead out back and murdering it, right? That's a framing effect. That's pretty hardcore. I don't recommend you get that aggressive with it because it would only make you more money, right? We got to be nice and sweet to our people, right? Or we can do things that can change them. But that's how you would take statistics and make them and dimensionalize them so people can understand them. You have a conversation with them. And so very often that's what I did. I said, I want you to imagine the time that you're at a party. Everybody's going to be at a party, hopefully. And if you're not, you got problems bigger than money, right? A little bit of humor goes a long ways in selling too. So the idea becomes, I get them on board, they see this picture, and then we make it less about the details and more about the results. A man will die for a gold ribbon was a phrase I heard, or a gold medal, a blue ribbon, and then was updated gold medal. It's so true for that recognition, that result. It's less about how they get there, it's more about what the result is. And so we walked through some of those things. So we talked about sourcing, and I told a personal story about how when we started off, we couldn't believe it was this little. We only had to source this much. And maybe I screwed it up. So we double checked it. So we call this slice of life. So if you can humanize a story, it makes it more believable by telling those little details. Yeah, I make mistakes. So I went back. One of the things that you could do much better at as a whole, and not necessarily specifically people in this room, but you'll notice I'm okay with admitting mistakes constantly. I said, yeah, I screw up all the time. So, I double checked it, right? It's the person who isn't willing to admit that they're ever wrong is the person that loses a lot of credibility in the marketplace. I love to brag about how dysfunctional I am at so many different things. So the few things that I say I'm functional at, you're like, well, you better be pretty damn good at that because he's so screwed up at everything else, right? I was 8 years old when I learned how to tie my shoes. True story. I didn't get my license until I was 23 years old. I could start a webinar and I could list 12 things that I did horribly wrong. And I said, and then I discovered how to do blank, the 13th thing. And now all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, that idiot can do it? Anybody can do it. I didn't even have to say that. A couple other observations, and then we're going to move on here because I want to make sure we hit all these videos today. Craig, did you have something?
I was just going to say, when you future-based recognition,
yes.
Instead of painting, oh, you make all this money, you use the recognition as the future.
Oh, totally. I mean, people, here's the real psychology. Now, again, where did I learn this? I studied the customers. And I heard what they talked about and how they got excited. And this is where I built this close. Because these people were saying, God, finally I have a business that I can explain to my spouse. Finally I have a business that my friends don't think is a total get-rich-quick scheme, right? Try explaining Google SEO to your friend at a party, right? Oh yeah, it's really simple. We do this thing called search engine optimization. And they're like, is that even a language? What does that mean, right? But everybody understands Amazon from the perspective, people don't understand Google. They use Google, but they're like, what is this magic box that I put questions into and answers come out, right? They don't get that, but they understand Amazon. Oh, I go there to buy things. So then when you say, yeah, I sell things on Amazon, it's like, oh, cool, I might want to buy that, right? Now all of a sudden you're a legitimate business person. Whereas before, if you were selling website redesign to local chiropractors, they're like, that's a scam. Scam. And now they're like, oh yeah, that's legit. Amazon's totally legit. And so a big part of that is by getting them to say, I'm really helping this thing. So when they're at a cocktail party, they can just say, I sell on Amazon. I'm an Amazon seller. And people are like, ooh, that's interesting. Where before they say, yeah, I'm selling this It Works wraps on spamming everybody's Facebook and, upselling the MLM downline. That's what I'm doing to get rich.
I remember when you and all SEOs were scams.
I never thought all SEOs were scams. Oh my God. I thought, let me rephrase that. Most SEOers are scammers, but SEO is legitimate, right? I know those guys. Nate, by the way, he used to be one of the best SEOers on the planet, yeah.
One of the things I noticed in all the videos is you kind of create these mental word pictures that are inclusive for people to step into, like the cocktail party, or you use, even we'd probably call them cliches or just familiar statements that everyone knows that it's like, oh, I can relate to that. You use the crabs in a barrel.
Yeah.
thing, you know. But I got a word picture, right? I probably won't remember most of what you said in that webinar, but I will remember like crabs in a barrel and whatever point was around that. So I don't know if you're doing that intentionally, but
Totally
I think
intentionally.
It's a great, like, brings people to a place of familiarity and comfortability, maybe.
Yeah, here's the challenge that we have is as subject matter experts, or as really just we know our stuff so well, we tend to talk in very, what's the best word? Like we get into it, right? What's that? Jargon is a big part of it, which absolutely avoid all jargon as much as you possibly can. But we also get meticulous towards the detail. Because here's where our reality is. If I go into the word a little bit deeper, if I can think of the difference between when you do a favor for a friend, and then they say, thank you for that, and you say, no problem, versus happy to help, there's a huge psychological difference behind that. No problem, when you do something for a friend, you say, no problem to them. You're focusing on, yeah, this wasn't really that big of a deal, so I guess I didn't do you a favor, right? When you say happy to help, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a good friend right there. There's a literally, now how big of a difference is that in the grand scheme of things? Probably almost nothing. You have to squint to see the difference. But you stack 1 million of those up, you might make an extra $1. For me, that's exciting, because I love that stuff. But you go to a guy, and he doesn't ask for the order in a sale. He doesn't need to know the difference between no problem versus happy to help, right? He doesn't need to know the difference between the 17 different ways that you can say yes with tonality alone, right? He's just got to say, you might want to possibly buy one of these things, right? And then if you can teach him 2 or 3 language, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being ready to buy and 1 being not ready to buy yet, where do you place yourself, Craig? 7.5. 7.5. So what would we need to do to get you to a 10?
Talking to me, I'll probably buy.
All right, cool. So do you got 5 more minutes, or should we do 10 more minutes instead, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that I could teach that technique to anybody. That's an easy close technique. Most of you would do better to learn one of those techniques than all this little tiny ups and downs kind of stuff. So we talk in language patterns, we talk and we create pictures. So you have to get in the habit of translating whatever you're doing into a picture that somebody can relate to. Because nobody's going to relate to the minutia that you drive through your head every single day, but everybody can relate to these general things. That's why sometimes I do intentionally use cliches. Sometimes we use those, what are the other words for them? What's the actual technical term? When you're using these things people are familiar with. Analogies is not it. Parables are closer to it. There's these like the homespun kind of, yeah, I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. But there's certain phrases that are very comfortable to hear, that you're used to hearing, that you were told at certain times. Colloquialisms. God, who came up with that one? Who came up with colloquialisms?
I just pronounced it.
Nice. One weekend, I decided to download the most common colloquialisms. And I went through them and I underlined the ones that I thought were most interesting. And I memorized them. So that's how I came up. I didn't want to use the normal colloquialisms that every single person used, but I wanted to know the ones that were a little bit deeper, that were interesting, that people were like, oh, I haven't heard that one in a while. And that's how I came up with these colloquialisms that I sell. So the whole thing is, when was the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? When was the second best time? Today, right? That's an old kind of colloquialism that nobody uses anymore. Same thing with the concept is society, and I screwed up the quote earlier, but society has truly evolved when our grandfathers plant trees that only we will be able to enjoy the shade of, right? There's these certain things that I just love to pick up on and then use. And then you'll find that they always have these word patterns. So we want to create an image in somebody's mind so they can see a movie, they can see a picture. And that's just really good communication, really effective communication. So I don't know how you teach somebody that necessarily, but just pay attention to how you describe things. And pay attention to how I do it. More often than not, I'll come up with a story or a concept or something you can relate to. I take something you can't relate to, link it with something you can relate to, and by proxy, now you can relate to the thing that I'm talking about. So for the idea of when I said, you go into a store and you pick it up, and I got this actually, it was so funny, it probably triggered because Mark, Tim, and I were talking in a break about our friend Sean Hart, who Will and I know really well, and I got that phrase from Sean. Because Sean used to tell me, he goes, I never sold anything I couldn't drop on my foot. He said this to me when the first night I met him, right? And I thought, I'm going to use that one. And so I use that today. Drop it on your foot, right? So I said that earlier. I said these are products, because you can't pick them up and drop them on your foot, you have to use graphics. People got a mental picture of dropping their product on their foot, which makes the idea more real. That, yeah, I could do this. I can drop a product on my foot, right? Like, I'm selling something real, not something that isn't real. I don't know. The more we can get somebody to see themselves doing the thing before they do the thing, the more likely we are to sell them. I will keep coming back to that again. So if you're at a cocktail party and you're going to say, I sell this on Amazon, then you're more likely to, right?